You've been chosen to look over Trevor Henderson's entity log.
I have taken the liberty of researching the deadliest and most disturbing and unique of the bunch. In each log, you will find the sightings reports, overall fear factor, theorized and canon abilities, and their overall destruction on humanity. With this, we can build a list of the most unfair Trevor Henderson creatures, but stick around until the very end, because not only can the entities lose their spot on the list as it goes on, but those who complete all the logs will access a bonus entry that is one of Trevor's least known and rare entities. Category Giant. Quantity, likely anywhere from 50 to hundreds. Wildfire giants are mysteries of nature, but ones that should be avoided at all costs. Rather than being a single entity, wildfire giants are thought to make up an entire species of unfathomably large titanic beings. Now, these entities were first sighted in the midst of a great Californian wildfire, and assumably most people who saw them didn't believe what they were seeing. And I can't say that I blame them. And as if these disasters didn't cause enough damage on their own, these things would definitely be adding to the chaos. But I have a theory that since you will commonly see versions of wildfire giants with no fire present, in my opinion, I think these giants, rather than being an effect of wildfires, are more like a cause of them, and can likely control them at will. Not to mention the death that they could cause by simply crushing anything in its path. Others have also made theories that they are able to duplicate at will, slowly moving across the land and spreading as it goes, similar to a wildfire itself. So the total destruction capability is honestly unmatched. Other than the whole incomprehensible cosmic fear of something this size not only being possible, but there being many of them, they aren't actually too scary based on looks alone. But I can't pretend that I wouldn't be frozen in fear if I was waltzing along on my night walk and turned only to see these things slowly coming closer in the distance. And by the looks of it, they also come with a huge cloud of fog. So we'd be blind and on fire. That's great. Regardless, since it's our first entity, they're gonna secure the #1 spot for now. But will the next log shake up the lineup? Category: Disguised Parasite. Quantity: Single entity. An abandoned location exploration turned into a horror show. Someone staying after hours too late, or simply just driving down the wrong road at the wrong time. But one thing is for sure, and that is no Trevor Henderson list is complete without the addition of Cartoon Cat, as it is said to be the most dangerous entity by both Trevor himself and a lot of the fan base, despite it sometimes having a less than disturbing appearance. The cartoon alias is actually by design, being used to lure people, and as messed up as it would sound, likely children to be devoured. Described by Trevor Henderson himself as a rot older than most people realize, it has likely perfected the ability to kill quickly and effectively. Its abilities are too many to list, and it doesn't seem to give anyone a chance to even run away. Its height varies greatly, and it can assumably break in anywhere if it needs to, not to mention altering its form. There's only one of them because there only needs to be one. And Trevor put it best in his tier list when he said, "Too late." The total destruction of Cartoon Cat would likely just be limited to the amount of people it kills, and that number is largely unknown. Not to mention, it is likely quick and leaves no trace when it comes to these. So how would Cartoon Cat stand up to, say, the wildfire giants? Cartoon Cat, being outnumbered and outsized, would have a run for its money, despite it being the most deadly. I feel like it doesn't quite compare to the sheer destruction of these creatures. And I know I'm gonna get burned at the stake for this, but Cartoon Cat could only really kill so many people at a time, while these giants could assumably kill thousands in a matter of minutes without even trying. So in my opinion, they'll be keeping their #1 spot for now. Category: Stalking Creature. Quantity: Unknown. Our third report would originate from 2 teens going free camping in the middle of the woods, from which only one of them would return. After he recovered from his trauma, he was able to tell the story on what happened during the trip. He talks about how everything would start out normal, with just simply the sounds of birds and the occasional bug or two, until eventually something would be caught in the corner of their eyes. Something that appeared like a towering shadow off in the distance. After disappearing from the view, it began to appear more and more often just out of sight, until eventually it stopped trying to hide, looking down at them with a pale face and eyes that looked almost painted on, and an unhinged jaw. And unlike most creatures that we've seen, it was in broad daylight. In an attempt to escape, they ran to their vehicle, and despite believing it wasn't following them, it appeared in their rearview mirror, and the car would not start. After waiting for hours for anything to happen, it got dark and they lost track of its location. When one of them finally decided to attempt to jumpstart the car, he never returned. The survivor would then be found days later, petrified and in shock, and there were no additional images that were ever recovered. This creature was appropriately named a lurking presence after the feeling that they got when they first would arrive. And while terrifying, this creature doesn't quite outweigh them, in my opinion, in terms of fear factor, and especially psychological damage. Hell, I know it's fake, and I still don't want to sleep outside after seeing this thing. Regardless, it's going to be in our number 3 spot on our list as of now. Category: omnipresent deity. Quantity: everywhere. This one has been a widespread issue for a while now. Thousands of reports have come in from all over the world, and they all possess similar stories. A devastating car crash resulting in the death of everyone inside. For a while, this would seem like all coincidences, until a theory would be created that they all had something to do with people who had just hit animals and turned them into roadkill, as their cars often possess dents of various sizes and spots, as well as large amounts of animal blood. To test this theory, we ended up looking for dashcam footage from one of these accidents, and sure enough, they were able to catch brief footage of a disturbing creature that we are now calling the God of Roadkill, a being that appears to be just a spine with chunks of flesh adorning it along with multiple eyes. It is unknown whether it has mercy for accidental killings or if it simply treats all of them the same. Regardless, this is a worldwide issue, but how does it stand up to our list? Well, it is assumed upwards of 5 million animals are killed daily, which would lead to far more deaths than anything on our list so far, and likely the most destruction. And if this became widespread, most people would be afraid to drive, and those that did would die out quickly. And this would cause massive chaos all over the world. So in my opinion, it's only fair to give the God of Roadkill our top spot on this list. Category: mutated insect. Quantity: likely thousands. If you come into contact with this being, it is crucial that you leave immediately and make sure that everybody you have with you or that is around you does not get taken by any of these entities. As for every living organism that this thing manages to get a hold of, hundreds of larvae will be laid inside of them, and humanity will be that much more at risk. The original sighting of these horrific entities came from a group of people exploring the ruins of a private testing lab that had been long abandoned. We are unsure how the hell such an abomination came to be. We do know, however, that apart from acting like an overgrown fly, thus the name, it possesses an extremely long proboscis capable of injecting an organism with a necrosis-inducing venom that melts down the flesh. Following this process, the housefly will lay up to hundreds of different eggs inside of the bodies, and then when they hatch, they will feed upon the remains until they reach maturity, and then the cycle will repeat itself. And due to the size of these creatures, this would be absolutely catastrophic for people as a whole. So it's crucial that you do not let yourself fall victim to this phenomenon. In comparison to the others on the list, it could potentially turn huge cities of people into maggot-infested grave sites, which, while equally horrific and damaging, it's not quite the death rate of the God of Roadkill, but it comes very, very close to the wildfire giants. But since they are much larger and possess the same duplication ability, I would say the housefly gets third on our list. Category: oversized fetal humanoid. Quantity: unknown. No one was ever really able to confirm what started the fire at the hospital, but we believe that is where all of this began. First, it was simply a few reports, then people began disappearing left and right. After making a map of the disappearances, it all started to create a pattern, like a wave emanating from the burned maternity ward. Rumors would then start to go around that rather than the typical kidnapper or murderer, it was more like some sort of fucked up creature they were calling the Pink Man after his weird deformed appearance. But for all intents and purposes, we will be referring to it as the Forgotten Baby. Horrified homeowners have managed to take a limited amount of photos of the creature, only a few of which can be recovered from their empty homes, although not all of them are confirmed. This creature has been described to authorities as incredibly silent, despite its large size, almost as if it was a TV channel that had been muted. Yet the creature still manages to move, and there were no signs of forced entry, nor did anyone know where it went. But there has yet to been any survivors, and its motive is still unknown. It is thought that the majority of the victims would be pregnant women, but there is no evidence that exactly confirms this. It's also unsure on whether this is a physical being or a manifestation of an enraged spirit. Regardless, it seems to be slightly less dangerous than Cartoon Cat and operates in a smaller radius. But in comparison to a lurking presence, the creature being able to enter your home seems far more dangerous and overall more psychologically damaging. We'll be getting the number 5 slot on our list for now. Category: dimensional entity. Quantity: likely millions. This entity is probably one of the least known creatures on this list, so it's going to be extremely theoretical. However, what we can assume is that these creatures exist on a different plane of reality than us. Whenever you stand in front of a mirror or see your reflection, they're likely observing you and waiting for an opportunity. Now, it is unknown if these things, apart from appearing in mirrors, can actually mimic your look as a form of camouflage or simply to lull you into a false sense of security, but as a device to at least stay a few feet away from your reflection at all times, as we have no idea what this other dimension would even look like, and there have been no indication of hope that you can ever make it back from here. It is assumed that they are torn apart and possibly even corrupted into madness until they become one of these entities themselves, similar to the retch process in the backrooms. But as I mentioned before, this is just a theory. We're also unsure on whether an individual can do something in order to make themselves a target, and then every reflection will contain these creatures until they are grabbed, or if it's more like random and spontaneous. It is crucial to be cautious and observant to see if your reflections start exhibiting odd behaviors. But compared to everything else, it's not really as horrific and devastating, as technically all this is speculated and we don't exactly know how often this could happen and if it's all reflections or just specific mirrors. Because of this, we're going to be putting these mirror entities in our 7th spot. Category: humanoid imitator. Quantity: everywhere. Quantity: anywhere from hundreds to thousands. The culmination of a horrific phone call and what's left of a senior community completely gutted by cricket-like creatures meant to mimic a sleepwalking elder. And to make things worse, these creatures were long gone by the time anyone would arrive. They seem to thrive off of this feeble cover as a way to get their victims and then bring their remains back to their nest, kind of similar to ants or other bugs. And to make this even weirder, after these people were killed, no one would come to remember them, not even their loved ones or anyone else on their record for that matter. It's almost as if that once they are killed, all memory of them is wiped off the face of the earth, which is going to make things a little bit more difficult. Not to mention their function similar to a hive mind, serving one female known as the Old Lady, similar to a queen of sorts. It is unknown where exactly these things nest, but that doesn't make them any less horrific. There have only thus far been notes of elder facilities being targeted. These entities could easily sweep the streets, devouring anyone unlucky enough to be walking nearby, making them fuel for the hive. Sleepwalkers have really only been canonically confirmed to attack old people homes, so it doesn't really make them a huge threat to humanity as a whole, at least not as much as the others, so they're going to take the lowest spot on our list. Category: structure mimic. Quantity: unknown, but likely many. This entity is as iconic as it is dangerous. Siren Head and other entities by the same species are giant creatures that use common, similarly built structures as camouflage. It acts as any other predator would, laying in wait and trying to lure anything close enough for it to make its move and ambush them. Most victims can never outrun Siren Head in time, as they don't really expect it to be as close to home as it ends up being. And they believe the common myth that Siren Head is only seen in remote places like, for an example, a forest or field in the middle of nowhere. And while this is partially true, there have been many images existing on common streets, graveyards, neighborhoods, homesteads, and even school grounds, especially when it comes to the bell ringer. It is unknown how many of these there are because of how good they are at hiding, so you never can really be sure if your path to schoolwork is completely safe after all, especially if you begin to hear random unnerving sirens through the fog. The Siren Head species has assumably culled thousands of victims, so it takes a solid spot on our list, placing right over the forgotten baby. Okay, that's it for our list. I've never seen this one before. Good God, this report is insane. Some divers went adventuring in the bottom of a lake to see how far it went. Piles of bones all over the lake bed. Mass drownings. I don't like this. Why are there no records of this entity? Okay, just stay calm and stay where you are.